The mayor's office in Guayaquil, Ecuador, activated the Cantonal Emergency Operations Committee and declared itself in permanent session after the heavy rains that caused heavy floodings in the region. The French flagged the streets as a nationwide mass demonstration that raged against the pension reform forced by the government of President Emmanuel Macron. And a foreign minister from Iran and Saudi Arabia have agreed to meet in order to finalize the reactivation of their embassies and restore diplomatic relations. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Ana Marrero from the teleSUR headquarters in Caracas, Venezuela. We begin with the news. Stay with us. Ecuador said that the details on Thursday to assume the presidency of the Ibero-American community for the period between 2023 and 2024. The designation will be made official during the 28th Ibero-American Summit of Head of States and Governments to be held on Friday and Saturday in the Dominican Republic. President Guillermo Lasso will attend the event. The Ecuadorian Foreign Ministry indicated that for the first time, Quito will assume this role and will concentrate this year of management in the areas of innovation, inclusion, and sustainability with 3 plans pillar: alternative economies for development, food security, and climate change. This March 24th and 25th, the Dominican Republic will have the meeting of leaders of Ibero-American countries in which representatives of the 22 countries in these areas will participate to discuss opportunities for cooperation. On Wednesday in Peru, a relative of the young Rosalino Flores, who was shot at least 36 pelets during the night of repression in the city of Cusco on January the 11th, demand justice for the crime against the 22-year-old. The family's claim comes after the death last Tuesday of the 22-year-old after 2 months of agony due to the projectiles that the police fired at him when he was helping in Cusco. Rosalino Flores' mother said that she does not want any kind of compensation from the Peruvian government, but only justice and to know who was the officer, my partner, who shot her son. The family's lawyer, San Jose Quispen, stated that a young man died from a multiple organ failure in the thorax as a result of the projectiles that were landing in his body, and that his case was being investigated in the city of Cusco as minor injuries with no collaboration from the authorities. So let's recall the events to the agony and death of Rosalino Flores, who passed away on Tuesday, last January the 11th. The young Rosalino Flores, together with his brother Jose Juan, participated in a protest in Cusco against the government of the appointed President Dina Boluarte. During the repression of the mobilization, Flores was shot by a policeman who fired at him from just a few meters away. This incident was recorded by security cameras in the area. After receiving a total of 36 pellets, Rosalino Flores was taken to the intensive care unit of the Antonio Lorena Hospital in the city of Cusco. Later, due to the seriousness of his wounds, he was evacuated to the Arzobispo Loyola Hospital in Lima, where he died last Tuesday. U.S. President Joe Biden will begin a 2-day visit to Canada on Tuesday to discuss issues of common interest with Canadian officials. A White House press release indicates that the issues to be discussed with Canadian Premier Justin Trudeau will include a strengthening of the supply chain, possible measures to mitigate climate change, and irregular migration. Another of the issues to be discussed will be the provision of military equipment to the government of Ukraine. Also on the military agenda will be the modernization of the of North American Aerospace Defense Command, integrated by both countries. This is Biden's first visit to the neighboring country, where he also plans to give a speech to the parliament. The 470 candidates for the dispute to Cuba's National Assembly are marking their last tour through the country's municipality on Thursday as part of the electoral campaign ahead of Sunday's elections. The tour began on February the 6th after the nominations were announced. Since then, the nominees have met voters through visits to companies, universities, scientific centers, agricultural entities, communities, and other social spaces in 168 municipalities of the island to listen to the opinions and expectations of the people. The campaign closed on Friday, March 24th, and elections will be held next Sunday, March the 26th. And in Ecuador, the mayor's office of Guayaquil activated a cantonal emergency operation committee and declared itself in permanent session after the heavy rains that have caused floodings in the region. The authorities declared that the fire rescue teams are on alert for many situations and asked the business sectors to activate working or delay the working day until the water ceases. The mayor, Cynthia Viteri, also informed that they have activated the Integral Municipal Attention Center of Pascuales as a shelter to receive the citizens affected by the storm. Let's take a very short break now, but remember, you can now follow us on our TikTok account as teleSUR English, in which you will be able to see news in different formats, news updates, and more. Stay tuned for more news. Welcome back to From the South. On Thursday evening, friends, the unions held a 9-day of strikes against the government pension reform. The indemnized date of striking friends over President Emmanuel Macron's changes to the country's pension system that brought a widespread disruption across the country, with trains and planes cancelled and oil refineries blocked by protesters. Paris Metro's bus and Suburban rail services are all expected to be badly disrupted. About half of the country, the high-speed TGV trains have been cancelled. Touristic hotspots like the Eiffel Tower and the Versailles Palace were closed on Thursday due to the strikes. The action comes 1 week after Macron for his wildly unpopular pension reform bill through the National Assembly without a vote, bringing thousands of enraged protesters out onto the streets, and 3 days after his government survived 2 non-confidence votes.
Despite everything I've heard, the running out of steam, this is the last demonstration, and so on. You see, it is the 9th. There are a lot of strikes in companies. There are petrol stations that don't have much petrol left, despite what I had heard. But I had heard the same thing in October. Stocks are full, etc. Today, for the first time in 2 months, there is the biggest drop in electricity production in France, 22,000 megawatts, which means that there are strikers. The rubbish bins, there are still some in the streets, despite the scandalous requisitions. There are still some in the streets, and there are plenty of strikes nationwide. So either the president listens, contrary to what he did yesterday, or he can continue to live in his sheltered world without listening to the people.
German unions are calling on thousands of workers across the country's transport systems to stage a one-day strike on Monday that is expected to bring a widespread disruption to planes, train, and local transit. The Verdi Services Workers Union and the EVG Union, which represents many railway workers, announced a 24-hour walkout in the joint appearance on Thursday that comes as employees in many sectors have been seeking rises to the combat inflation, which reached a 9.7% rate in February. The action will include security and ground workers at all German airports except Berlin. 36 at 10.5% pay raising, and EDE is seeking a rise of 12%, with employers offering a total of 5% increase in two-stage plus one-time payment of €2,500.
For this reason, the EVG and BRT are simultaneously calling the employees of the transport industry and important infrastructure sectors in Germany into a full-day industrial action. This strike day will have a massive effect. We are aware of that, and it is necessary.
Spanish Premier Pedro Sánchez will be visiting China next week, with peace in Ukraine high on the agenda. Spanish Presidency Minister Felix Bolaños said that the possible mediation of the Chinese President Xi Jinping in the conflict is the reason for the trip. The two-day visit has been scheduled for March the 30th. Spanish take over the European Union, so rotating presidency next July. And although the country has backed NATO's assistance efforts to Ukraine supplying weaponry, the current Spanish premier belongs to a political coalition which includes the Spanish Communist Parties, which last February the 24th, marking 1 year into the war call for an end to all Spanish involvement in the conflict and a negotiating peace. China warned that the U.S. on Thursday that its troops are the positioning and ready to proceed in the face of any military threat or provocation by expressing opposition to the dispatch of a U.S. ship to its territorial waters. The spokesman of the People's Liberation Army, Tayin Junli, stressed in a statement that a passage of the Guy missile destroyer, the Milus, near the islet in the South Sea on Wednesday, compromised peace and stability in the region. For China, it was an illegal action because it did not have the government's permission and asserted the sovereignty of the Asian Union. teleSUR English continues to grow. You can now tune in from 33 different African countries through StarSat. Dial Proxys 1 and join our Latin American alternative broadcast. One financial break and we'll be right back. Welcome back. The Iranian and Saudi foreign minister alleged on Thursday to finalize the reactions of their embassies. Through a statement issued after a meeting between the Iranian and Saudi presidents, where they signed an agreement not to confront each other militarily, the foreign ministers, through a telephone contact, agreed to hold a meeting to move forward on the mobilizations of bilateral relations. The two Middle East powers agreed to restore diplomatic relations this month, a deal that was finalized in Beijing, with China acting as an intermediator. The Israeli parliament approved on Thursday a law that shielded Premier Benjamin Netanyahu from impeachment. The approval law will limit the ways of sitting premier can be declared unfit for office, and it is largely seen by the opposition and criticized as a way to protect the premier, who faces serious legal problems with 3 open cases of fraud, bribery, and breach of truth. The text passed its third and final reading at 6 a.m. local time after an all-night plenary session with 61 votes in favor and 47 against, which have preceded by the lengthy discussions. Meanwhile, thousands of Israeli demonstrate in Tel Aviv against judicial overhaul, blocking the roadway across the country and intensifying a month-long campaign decreeing that the move. Demonstrators carrying flags and signing marches through the city, stopping traffic in the middle of the workday. The protests have escalated since the start of the year when Premier Benjamin Netanyahu's far-right government introduces new legislation that will limit the authority to the Supreme Court. In Jerusalem, crowds also gathered along the walls of the old city, from which they had a huge replica of the country's Declaration of Independence. The deadly cyclone that hit several African countries last week has displaced more than half a million people in the country, the United Nations said on Tuesday, as it warned of rising humanitarian needs. The cyclone has left nearly 500 people dead in Malawi, while other 150 have died after its path through other southern African countries, according to the UN agency, and some 508,250 people have been displaced. Dr. Matshidiso Rebecca Moeti, Regional Director for the Africa of the World Health Organization, warned of high public health risks, including the increasing spread of cholera in the continent.
The cyclone has left an appalling humanitarian situation in its wake. More than 300 health facilities, including university hospital centers, have been destroyed or flooded in Madagascar, Malawi, and Mozambique, leaving communities without adequate access to health services. The extensive damage, flooding, and torrential rains have affected more than 1.4 million people in the three countries and stretched the capacity of health systems. The cyclone's devastation has raised public health risks, including the increased spread of cholera, malaria, vaccine-preventable diseases, even COVID-19, and malnutrition. And of course, support for trauma and mental health is equally needed.
More than 400 rebels in Chad have been handed life sentence following the death of former ruler Idris Ebi Intu, who was killed in 2021. According to Amena's prosecutor, Mohammed El Jabitnana, the detained were sentenced after a mass trial for acts of terrorism, recruitment of child soldiers, and assaulting the head of state. The official did not give an exact number of those jails, saying only that more than 400 were sentenced to life, while 24 others were acquitted. And we have come to the end of this news brief, but you can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also use us on our socials. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and on Instagram as well. For Telesur English and from the South, I'm Ana Marrero, and thank you for watching.